Welcome to another deep dive, everyone. Today, we are getting into the nitty-gritty of Google Analytics 4. Specifically, we're talking about GA4 Explorations. Think of it kind of like the detective's toolkit within GA4.
Yeah, it really is where all the magic happens. That's where you can move beyond just seeing the data and really start to understand what's going on with your website.
Absolutely. And to help us on this journey, we have the insights of DiTomaso from Kickpoint. She's a leading expert in GA4 and actually gave a fantastic talk at Engage 2024 called Unpacking GA4 Explorations. So even though she isn't here with us today, we're going to be diving into her key insights to help you all become experts in GA4 explorations.
Yeah, the first thing to remember is that explorations are all about going beyond the surface. The standard GA4 reports are kind of like that quick checkup, but the explorations are where you can do a deep dive to actually diagnose and understand the why behind those numbers.
So it's kind of like having a secret decoder ring for all of your website data.
Exactly. One of the most powerful tools in that decoder ring is the ability to create segments and audiences. So instead of just looking at all of your website visitors as one big blob, you can actually use segments to filter and focus on very specific groups of people.
So instead of just knowing that 1,000 people visited my website, I can actually break that down and see, okay, how many of them were new visitors versus returning visitors? Or, how many of them came from a specific marketing campaign?
Exactly. And you can get even more hyper-specific than that. So think about segments like people who visited my pricing page but didn't actually sign up for a free trial, or users who added an item to their cart and then abandoned it. So it's that level of granularity where those really interesting insights start to emerge.
Yeah. And then you can see like, oh, there are all these patterns that I was completely missing. And then you can tailor your website or your marketing to actually fix those issues.
Oh. Exactly. Dana also talked about using segments to actually identify what she calls micro-conversions. These are those smaller actions that might not be a direct sale, but they show that someone is engaged with your brand or your website.
So things like signing up for a newsletter or maybe watching a product demo video.
Exactly. And these micro-conversions are pure gold because they tell you who's interested, even if they're not ready to buy yet. And then you can use that information to nurture those relationships and move them closer to that purchase.
It's like following a trail of breadcrumbs to see where people are getting stuck in that journey. And then you can say, okay, how can I clear the path for them to make it as easy as possible?
Yeah, and the beauty of explorations is that they don't just give you numbers. You can actually create custom charts and graphs that bring that data to life. It's much more engaging and easier to understand than just staring at spreadsheets all day.
It's like the difference between reading a recipe versus watching a cooking show. The visuals just make it click.
Exactly. And speaking of different ways to analyze your data, Dana also highlighted the different techniques within explorations. And each technique is like a specialized lens for looking at your data from a different angle.
Okay, so let's zoom in on those techniques. Which ones would you say are the must-knows for somebody who's maybe just starting out with explorations?
Yeah, so one of the most versatile techniques is called free-form exploration. And this is your go-to for really open-ended exploration. So if you want to figure out, why your website traffic suddenly dropped, or maybe you're just curious to see if you can uncover some unexpected trends. Freeform is a great place to just experiment with different dimensions and metrics and see what jumps out at you.
So you can stumble upon those aha moments.
Yeah.
And find insights that you didn't even know you were looking for.
Absolutely. Then there's the JavaScript errors technique. And this one is crucial for any website owner because it allows you to pinpoint any technical glitches that might be impacting the user experience on your site.
So if I have like a button that's not working or a page is loading really slowly, this can help me find the culprit.
Exactly. You can actually break down errors by browser. So you can see if the problem is specific to Chrome users or Safari or Firefox, which can be incredibly helpful for your development team to figure out, okay, how do we fix this?
Yeah, that's so important because a smooth user experience can make or break your conversions. Nobody wants to stick around on a website that's frustrating or difficult to use.
Exactly. Now let's talk about one of the most popular techniques, but also one that I think gets misunderstood a lot, which is the funnel exploration.
Ooh, yes. I love this one. You know how everybody thinks that funnels are only for e-commerce websites?
Right. It's a common misconception. But in GA4, you can actually use funnels to track any series of steps that users take on your site. So whether they're buying something or signing up for a newsletter or even just clicking through different pages.
So instead of just seeing, the starting point and the end point of a user's journey, you can see all the little steps they took in between.
Yeah.
and figure out, okay, where are they dropping off? Where are they getting stuck?
Exactly. This is incredibly valuable for optimizing your website and improving your conversion rates. And here's a cool little tidbit. The funnel exploration is actually the only exploration that can be directly added to your standard GA4 reports.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that. So once you've built a funnel that you're happy with, you can basically just have those insights readily available in your regular reporting dashboard.
Exactly. It makes it that much easier to monitor your progress and see, okay, how are those changes that I made to my website actually impacting user behavior?
Yeah, it's like having a little mini map of your website showing you the most traveled routes and where those roadblocks are.
Exactly. Now, Dana also had some great advice about using funnels for remarketing in Google Ads.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more about that.
Okay, so let's say you have a funnel set up to track people who are visiting your pricing page. Then they click on the free trial button, and then finally they complete the sign-up form. Inevitably, some people are going to drop off at each stage of that journey.
Right. They get distracted, or maybe they decide they're not ready yet.
Exactly, but they've still shown some level of interest, right? So you can actually create a segment in GA4 based on those people who abandoned the funnel at a specific step. So let's say people who clicked on the free trial button but didn't actually complete the sign-up form.
Okay. I see where you're going with this.
You can then export that segment to Google Ads and create a targeted remarketing campaign that speaks directly to those users. So you can remind them of the benefits of your free trial. You can answer any common objections they might have, or even offer them a special discount to incentivize them to come back and sign up.
It's like giving them a gentle nudge back onto the path and saying,
Yeah.
hey, remember us. We're still here, and we think you'll love what we have to offer.
Exactly. And because you're targeting people who have already expressed some level of interest, your chances of re-engaging them and getting them to convert are that much higher.
That's brilliant. It's like a secret weapon for maximizing your marketing ROI.
It really is. Okay, I know we're getting kind of deep in the weeds here, but there are a couple more techniques I want to make sure we cover before we move on.
Let's do it.
One that really caught my eye was path exploration.
Ooh. Tell me more.
This one's really cool. Path exploration is like a treasure map for understanding user journeys. It lets you see all the different paths that users take through your website. So from their entry point all the way to their final destination and everything in between.
Dana mentioned this really cool feature called ending point, which sounds incredibly helpful for understanding, how people are discovering your content.
It is. So with the ending point feature, you can essentially reverse engineer the user journey. So let's say your ending point is a thank you page that people reach after submitting a contact form on your website.
Okay, so I'm working backwards. I'm seeing how did people end up on that specific page.
Exactly. The exploration will show you all the different paths users took to get to that thank you page. So you might see that a lot of people found it through a specific blog post that linked to the contact form, or that, a particular social media campaign was really effective at driving traffic to that page.
Oh, that's so insightful. So you can see what's working and then double down on those successful channels or strategies.
Exactly. You can also use path exploration to identify any points in the journey where users are maybe getting lost or dropping off. So maybe there's a page with a confusing call to action, or maybe a form that's just too long and complicated and people are giving up before they finish it.
Right. So you can use those insights to really optimize the user experience and make it as easy as possible for people to find what they're looking for and achieve their goals.
Exactly. It's about smoothing out those rough edges and creating a more enjoyable journey for your users.
Now, Dana did mention a limitation with path exploration. Do you remember what that was?
Yes, in read-only mode, you can't actually click on the individual steps in a path to expand them and see more details. So to unlock that functionality, you need to switch over to interactive mode.
Good to know. So experiment with both modes and see what works best for your analysis. Okay, before we move on to the next part of our deep dive, I want to touch on one more technique, which is cohort analysis.
Cohort analysis, it's powerful, but it can also feel a little intimidating at first. It's all about understanding user behavior over time and seeing how different groups of users engage with your website or your app.
Okay, but break that down for me. What exactly is a cohort, and how can I use cohort analysis to get those valuable insights?
Okay, so a cohort is simply a group of users who share a common characteristic. This could be anything from their acquisition date, so like when they first interacted with your website, to their location, their demographics, or even specific actions they've taken on your site.
So I can have a cohort of users who signed up for my newsletter in January, or a cohort of users who purchase a specific product during like a summer sale.
Exactly. And then you can track how those groups behave over time. You can see how many of them come back to your website, how many make additional purchases, and how their engagement levels change over the weeks and months following that initial interaction.
That sounds incredibly valuable for understanding customer lifetime value and figuring out, okay, how do I keep people coming back for more?
Absolutely. You can also use cohort analysis to compare different cohorts and see if there are any significant variations in their behavior.
So I could compare the behavior of users who came from a Facebook ad campaign versus those who came from organic search, or those who signed up for a free trial versus those who just purchased right away.
Exactly. And those comparisons can reveal some really valuable insights about which acquisition channels are most effective at attracting high-value customers, or which onboarding strategies lead to the highest levels of engagement and retention.
It's like having a time machine that lets you follow different groups of users through their journey and see how their behavior evolves over time.
Exactly. And by understanding those patterns, you can make really data-driven decisions
Right.
about how to improve your marketing, your product, and your overall customer experience.
Wow. Cohort analysis sounds like a must-have tool for any business that's serious about understanding their customers and driving long-term growth.
It really is. And, Dana shared a really helpful tip about cohort analysis that I think is worth highlighting. She emphasized using the per cohort user metric for more accurate insights.
What's so special about that metric?
Well, it normalizes the data and gives you a clearer picture of how each individual within the cohort is behaving, rather than just looking at those overall averages.
So I could see, for example, how many purchases each individual user in a cohort made over a certain period, rather than just knowing the average number of purchases per user across the entire cohort.
Exactly. And that level of granularity can be really helpful for identifying your most valuable customers and understanding their behavior patterns.
Okay, I'm definitely going to need to spend some time playing around with cohort analysis to really wrap my head around it. It sounds like a really powerful tool, but also one that requires a bit of a learning curve.
It does, but trust me, the insights you can gain are well worth the effort. It's like leveling up your data analysis skills and unlocking a whole new level of understanding about your customers.
All right, that was a whirlwind tour of some of the key techniques available in GA4 Explorations. I feel like we only just scratched the surface, but hopefully this has given you a good overview of the power and potential of this incredible feature.
We definitely covered a lot of ground, and the great thing is there's always more to explore. Each technique has its own nuances and possibilities. And as you get more comfortable with GA4 Explorations, I think you'll start to discover even more creative ways to use it to answer your specific business questions.
That's what's so exciting about it. It's like a playground for data enthusiasts.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something new to discover, always a deeper layer to uncover. But for now, we're going to take a little breather, and when we come back in the next part of our deep dive, we'll be putting all this knowledge into action with some real-world examples and case studies.
Yeah, we'll show you how to apply these techniques to your own website data and start unlocking those game-changing insights that can help you grow your business.
So stay tuned, Data Explorers. We'll be back in a flash.
Welcome back to our deep dive on GA4 Explorations.
Before we move on, I wanted to circle back to this idea of microconversions that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, it's such an important concept, and I think one that a lot of people overlook, especially those of us who are, used to thinking about conversions in terms of sales or leads.
Right. It's easy to get so fixated on, those big, obvious conversions, but sometimes those smaller actions can actually tell us even more about user engagement.
Exactly. Think about it this way. Every time someone takes, a small action on your website, whether it's signing up for your newsletter, watching a video, downloading a PDF, they're raising their hand and saying, hey, I'm interested.
Yeah, it's like those little breadcrumbs that Hansel and Gretel left behind.
Yeah.
They might seem insignificant on their own, but they can lead you to something really valuable.
I love that analogy. And the great thing about GA4 Explorations is you can actually track those breadcrumbs and see where they lead.
So, for example, if I'm a blogger and I want to know, how many people are actually reading my latest post all the way to the end, I could set up a microconversion for scrolling to the bottom of the page.
Exactly. Or you could track how many people are clicking on the links within your post, or how many people are sharing it on social media.
And then you can use those insights to figure out, okay, what kind of content is really resonating with my audience, and maybe even create more content like that.
Precisely. You can also use microconversions to identify your most engaged users and create targeted campaigns to nurture those relationships.
So, for example, if I see that somebody has, downloaded multiple lead magnets and they spent a lot of time browsing my website, I might send them a personalized email with like a special offer or invite them to a webinar.
That's a great example. It's all about using those micro conversions to segment your audience and tailor your marketing messages to their specific interests and behaviors.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit, I want to talk about something that I think can be a real headache for a lot of website owners, which is JavaScript errors.
Oh yeah, those pesky little glitches that can really wreak havoc on your user experience.
Exactly, and I think a lot of people underestimate just how much these errors can impact things like bounce rates, conversion rates, even SEO rankings.
It's true, even like a small error can cause a page to load really slowly or, a button to malfunction. And that can just lead to frustration and lost conversions.
So how can GA4 Explorations help us track down these errors and eliminate them?
Well, the JavaScript errors technique is your secret weapon here. It allows you to see exactly which errors are occurring, how frequently they're happening, and on which pages or browsers they're popping up.
So it's like having a diagnostic tool. That tells you exactly, what's wrong with your website and where to go to find the problem.
Exactly, and the ability to break down errors by browser is incredibly helpful because it can really help you pinpoint like compatibility issues or conflicts with specific plugins or extensions that you might have installed.
So if I see that an error is only happening on Safari, but not on Chrome or Firefox, that gives me like a big clue as to where to start troubleshooting.
Precisely, and once you've identified the errors and you fix them, you can actually use GA4 Explorations to track the impact of those fixes. So did the errors decrease? Did page load times improve? Did your conversions go up?
It's always so satisfying to see those positive results and know that you've actually made a real difference in the user experience.
Absolutely. It's all about using data to drive continuous improvement. Now let's circle back to a topic that we've touched on a couple of times already, which is funnels.
Ooh, I'm always up for talking about funnels. I think they're one of the most powerful tools in GA4, but also one of the most misunderstood.
I agree. A lot of people still think that funnels are only relevant for e-commerce websites, but that's just not true.
Yeah, Dana did a great job of debunking that myth in her presentation. She explained that you can use funnels to track any sequence of steps that's important to your business, regardless of whether it actually involves a transaction or not.
Right. Think about it this way. A funnel is just a visual representation of a user journey. It shows you the steps that people are taking to reach a particular goal and where they might be dropping off along the way.
So it could be anything from, signing up for a newsletter, to downloading a lead magnet, to requesting a quote, to completing an online course.
Exactly. And by analyzing each step in that funnel, you can identify any friction points that might be preventing people from, actually completing the desired action.
So if I'm like a lead generation website, and I see that a lot of people are dropping off at the contact form stage, maybe I need to take a closer look at my form and say, okay, is there anything I can do to make this shorter, simpler, more user-friendly?
That's a great example. Or you could use funnels to track the onboarding process for like a new app or software.
So I can see, how many people are completing each step of the tutorial and where they might be getting stuck or confused.
And then you can use those insights to improve the onboarding experience and make it easier for new users to get up and running.
Dana also mentioned that the funnel exploration is the only one that can be directly added to your standard GA4 reports. That seems like a pretty big deal.
It is. It means that once you've created a funnel that you're happy with, you can just easily integrate those insights into your regular reporting dashboard, which makes it so much easier to track your progress over time.
Yeah, it's like having a little mini map of your website showing you, the most traveled routes and where those roadblocks are.
Exactly. Now, remember that tip that Dana shared about using funnels for remarketing in Google Ads? We talked about it a little bit earlier. But I think it's worth revisiting because it's such a powerful strategy.
Absolutely. It's like a secret weapon for maximizing your marketing ROI.
It really is, and it's surprisingly easy to set up. Basically, you create a segment in GA4 based on those people who abandon the funnel at a specific step, and then you export that segment to Google Ads and create a targeted remarketing campaign that speaks directly to those users.
So if I'm like an e-commerce store owner, and I see that a lot of people are adding items to their cart, but then abandoning it before they actually reach the checkout, I could create a remarketing campaign that reminds them of the items they left behind and maybe offers them free shipping or a discount to kind of encourage them to complete their purchase.
That's a perfect example. You can also use remarketing to upsell or cross-sell products to people who have already made a purchase.
So if someone buys a pair of shoes, I might show them an ad for matching socks or a hue care kit.
Exactly. The possibilities are really endless. And the beauty of it is you're targeting people who have already shown interest in your products or services. So your chances of converting them are that much higher.
Yeah, it's like giving those hesitant shoppers a little gentle nudge and saying, hey, we thought you might like this.
And because you're only showing your ads to people who have already visited your website, you're not wasting your ad budget on people who are unlikely to be interested.
It's a win-win for everyone.
Now, I know we're covering a lot of ground here, but there are a couple more techniques I want to explore before we wrap up this part of our deep dive. One that I find particularly fascinating is path exploration.
Oh, yeah. Path exploration. It's like a treasure map for understanding user journeys.
It really is. It allows you to see all the different paths that users take through your website, from their entry point to their final destination and everything in between.
And remember, Dana mentioned this feature called Ending Point, which sounded incredibly helpful for understanding how people are discovering your content.
It is. So with the ending point feature, you essentially reverse engineer the user journey.
Okay, so I'm basically working backwards. I'm seeing how do people end up on that specific page?
Exactly. The exploration will show you all the different paths that users took to get to that page. So you might see that a lot of people found it through a specific blog post that linked to it.
Right.
Or that, a particular social media campaign was really effective at driving traffic there.
Oh, that's so insightful. So you can see what's working and then double down on those successful channels or strategies.
Exactly. You can also use path exploration to identify any points in the journey where users are maybe getting lost or dropping off. So maybe there's a page with a confusing call to action, or a form that's just too long and complicated and people are giving up before they finish it.
Right. So you can use those insights to really optimize that user experience.
Yeah.
And make it as easy as possible for people to find what they're looking for.
It's about smoothing out those rough edges and creating a more enjoyable journey for your users.
Now, Dana did mention one little limitation with path exploration. Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, in read-only mode, you can't actually click on the individual steps in a path to expand them and see more details. So to unlock that functionality, you need to switch over to interactive mode.
Good to know. So experiment with both modes and see what works best for your analysis. Okay, before we move on to the next part of our deep dive, I want to touch on one more technique, which is cohort analysis.
Cohort analysis, it's a powerful tool, but it can feel a little intimidating at first. It's all about understanding user behavior over time and seeing how different groups of users engage with your website or your app.
Okay, so break that down for me. What exactly is a cohort? And how can I use cohort analysis to actually get some valuable insights from it?
So a cohort is simply a group of users who share a common characteristic. And this could be anything from their acquisition date, so when they first interacted with your website, to their location, their demographics, or even specific actions that they've taken on your site.
So I could have a cohort of users who signed up for my newsletter in January, or a cohort of users who purchased a specific product during like a summer sale.
Exactly. And then you can track how those groups behave over time. You can see how many of them come back to your website, how many make additional purchases, and how their engagement levels change over the weeks and months following that initial interaction.
That sounds incredibly valuable for understanding customer lifetime value and figuring out how to keep people coming back for more.
Absolutely. You can also use cohort analysis to compare different cohorts and see if there are any significant variations in their behavior.
So I could compare the behavior of users who came from a Facebook ad campaign versus those who came from organic search, or those who signed up for a free trial versus those who just purchased right away.
Exactly. And those comparisons can reveal some incredibly valuable insights about which acquisition channels are most effective at attracting high-value customers, or which onboarding strategies lead to the highest levels of engagement and retention.
It's like having a time machine that lets you follow those different groups of users through their journey and see how their behavior evolves over time.
Exactly. And by understanding those patterns, you can make really data-driven decisions about how to improve your marketing, your product, and your overall customer experience.
Wow, cohort analysis sounds like a must-have tool for any business that's serious about understanding their customers and driving long-term growth.
It definitely is. And, Dana shared a super helpful tip about cohort analysis that I think is worth highlighting. She really emphasized using the per cohort user metric for more accurate insights.
Well, what's so special about that metric?
Well, it normalizes the data and gives you a much clearer picture of how each individual within the cohort is behaving, rather than just looking at those overall averages.
So I could see, for example, how many purchases each individual user in a cohort made over a certain period, rather than just knowing like the average number of purchases per user across the entire cohort.
Exactly. And that level of granularity can be really helpful for identifying your most valuable customers and really understanding their behavior patterns.
Okay, I'm definitely going to need to spend some time playing around with cohort analysis to really wrap my head around it. It sounds like a really powerful tool, but also one that requires a little bit of a learning curve.
It does, but trust me, the insights you can gain are well worth the effort. It's like leveling up your data analysis skills and unlocking a whole new level of understanding about your customers.
Now, before we move on to putting all of this knowledge into action, I want to take a moment to kind of highlight some of the pro tips that Dana shared throughout her presentation. She really packed in a ton of valuable information.
She did. She's like a walking encyclopedia of GA4 wisdom.
I know one tip that really stuck with me was her advice about checking your data retention settings.
Oh, yes, that's crucial. You need to make sure that you've set your data retention period long enough to capture the data that you need for your analysis. Otherwise, you might find yourself missing valuable historical data when you go to run those year-over-year comparisons.
Right, you don't want to be caught short.
Another tip I loved was about utilizing custom channel groupings for more nuanced funnel breakdowns.
Oh, yeah. By creating custom channel groupings, you can really categorize your traffic sources in a way that's more meaningful to your business and get a much more accurate picture of how those different channels are actually contributing to your conversions.
Exactly. And remember how she mentioned that default channel groups can't be used in funnel breakdowns? But you can use custom channel groups.
Right? So much flexibility there.
And while we're on the topic of customization, she also encouraged listeners to really embrace naming and renaming explorations and tabs just for better organization. I know I'm personally guilty of leaving things with their default names and then ending up with this jumbled mess.
Well, me too. A little upfront organization can save you a lot of headaches later on.
For sure. Oh, and I loved her tip about using variable ranges and charts instead of fixed ones, just for more accurate data representation.
Oh, that's a great point. It's all about making sure that your data is presented in a clear and accurate way so that you can make informed decisions.
Well said. And let's not forget her advice about being mindful of misleading bar chart lengths. It's easy to get caught up in the visuals, but it's so important to really focus on those actual data values.
Those are fantastic reminders. It's all about being a critical thinker and not letting those visual biases kind of lead you astray.
Absolutely. Data visualization is powerful, but it's so important to use it responsibly.
It's like having a superpower. You've got to use it for good.
Exactly. Now, are you ready to put all of this knowledge into action? With some real-world examples and case studies.
Absolutely. I'm itching to see how these techniques can be applied to different types of businesses and websites. Let's head over to part 3. All right, so welcome back to the deep dive, everyone.
We're ready to solve some website mysteries.
Yes, I am feeling like a Dable detective ready to crack the case. So let's start by putting ourselves in the shoes of a content creator. Maybe you have a blog and your traffic has been mysteriously declining over the past few months. Where would you even start to untangle that web?
That's where freeform exploration comes in handy. It's like having a magnifying glass for your website data.
So I would start by, comparing my traffic trends over time, looking at different channels like organic search, social media, email, and see, okay, where's the drop coming from?
Exactly. Maybe you notice that your organic search traffic has taken a major hit. Freeform lets you drill down even further. You can look at landing pages, device type specific countries to see if there are any patterns in that decline.
So let's say I find that most of the drop is coming from mobile users. And it's mainly affecting, blog posts about a specific topic.
Okay, that's a great starting point. Now you can start to investigate why that's happening. Maybe there was a recent Google algorithm update that's penalizing sites that aren't mobile friendly, and those particular blog posts haven't been optimized for mobile viewing.
Oh, so suddenly the mystery starts to unravel.
Right, and you can use other GA4 exploration techniques to confirm your suspicions. Like path exploration could show you how mobile users are actually navigating those blog posts, while cohort analysis might reveal if they're bouncing off quickly compared to desktop users.
It's like piecing together a puzzle, using different techniques to get that full picture.
Now let's switch gears and pretend you're an e-commerce store owner who's about to launch a brand new product.
So exciting.
How could GA4 explorations help make that launch a success?
Well, I think in that situation, my go-to would be the funnel exploration. I would want to set up a funnel that tracks that entire customer journey, from product discovery all the way to purchase.
That's a smart move. You want to see how many people are visiting the product page, adding it to their cart, proceeding to checkout, and then finally completing that purchase. Any bottlenecks in that funnel could mean lost sales.
So what if I see that a lot of people are adding the product to their cart, but then abandoning it before they actually reach the checkout?
That's a classic e-commerce problem. It could be a sign that something's off with your shipping costs or your payment options, or maybe the checkout process is just too complicated.
Okay, so all fixable issues, but I wouldn't have even known about them without setting up that funnel in the first place.
And remember Dana's tip about custom channel groupings. This is where they really shine. You can actually see which of your marketing efforts, so like your paid ads, your social media, your email campaigns, are actually driving the most valuable traffic to your product page.
So that helps me to focus my budget on the channels that are really moving the needle.
And don't forget about remarketing. For those people who abandon their carts, you can set up targeted ads that remind them about the product. Maybe offer a discount, or just highlight the benefits they're missing out on.
It's like a little gentle nudge to say, hey, come back. We still think you'll love this.
And because you're only targeting people who have already shown interest, you're not wasting ad dollars on folks who are unlikely to buy anyway.
Okay, so win-win for everyone. Now for our final case study, let's say you're a consultant who offers online coaching programs. How can GA4 Explorations help you to understand and engage your clients?
In this case, cohort analysis is going to be your best friend. You can create cohorts based on when clients signed up, what program they chose, or even where they came from.
So I could compare the behavior of clients who signed up in January versus those who signed up in June, or those who chose like my basic package versus my premium package.
Exactly. You can see how many clients in each cohort are actively participating, completing modules, and ultimately achieving their goals.
This helps me see what's working and what's not, so I can really refine my programs and make them even more effective.
And don't forget about Dana's emphasis on using that per cohort user metric. Instead of just looking at averages, you can actually see the individual journeys of each client within a cohort. This might reveal that clients who, found you through referrals are much more engaged than those who signed up through ads, for example.
Wow. Those are insights I wouldn't get anywhere else. It's like having a personal progress report for each group of clients.
Exactly. GA4 Explorations really give you the power to go beyond the surface and truly understand your audience, whether it's blog readers, shoppers, coaching clients.
It's been an amazing journey exploring all of these techniques. But I think the real magic happens when you actually start applying them to your own website data.
That's where the fun begins. It's like being a detective using data as clues to unlock those secrets of user behavior.
And, the cool thing is GA4 is constantly evolving. So there's always something new to learn and discover. So embrace that curiosity, experiment with different techniques, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Dana DiTomaso gave us an incredible roadmap for navigating the world of GA4 explorations. And I think hopefully this deep dive has inspired you to start using these tools to unlock your website's full potential.
So thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into GA4 explorations. And we'll see you next time, ready to explore another fascinating topic.